Yeah. So, um, greetings, you all.
Good evening.
Another week has passed us here.
How's
So,
it going?
oh, it's about the same. All the snow melted that fell around here in Austin. So, I was pretty. It was not fairly surreal because it actually does snow here in the winter. We just never had it that thick come down. Like last year, it snowed like twice, but it wasn't that much. It was just light dusting of snow, which some people may like. It snows in Austin. And it's like, yeah, it's just that jet stream like dips down over the country, and sometimes we get these winter things here. And actually, it's colder here than in Southern SoCal. In the wintertime, believe it or
It was
not.
86 these past few days over here, so I am unable to relate to what you're saying right now.
Exactly.
Man.
I've been running the AC all day today.
Are you kidding me, man?
Nope.
Like today, it's been I don't know. I think it's in the 60s here. So in the Austin area, let's see here. What was the official? Yeah, our high was 64 today.
Wow.
And it's going to drop to 38. So this is what I'm talking about, right? So it was like, so I'm talking about the weather, but
must be nice.
Yep.
Yeah, but I let's see here. We got a pile of rain coming next week, and I don't think any of it'll have snow or anything. But I was driving around in the snow, and the day that it was snowing. And because I had to go to the grocery store, I had to get some groceries and stuff. And then, and the thing is that Austin's not really like a snow town. It's not like Wisconsin and crap, right? So there's not like people like the city is not out there, plowing the roads or anything. So by the time I got back, I had just, I pulled into the garage and I just had all the snow on my undercarriage that stuck. And I was like, crap. So I just let the car out. And just like, I'm just going to leave it out and let it drip dry, for the next day or so.
Yeah.
Which eventually it all melted off. So, dogs had fun in it. Dogs had fun. They were just jumping around and stuff. So, yeah, cool stuff. So yeah, anything new on your side of the fence before we start talking about WandaVision, guys?
Not necessarily. Same old around here. Just continuing the teleworking thing, and been getting into some retro gaming, playing a lot of Mega Man X lately, and what else? Not much. I've been really catching up on a lot of anime as well. Just been plowing through the JoJo Bizarre Adventure series, so I just finished Diamond is Unbreakable today, and that's about it. Just kind of just chilling, laying low, and keeping myself entertained. And of course,
yeah.
And of course, there's always the acquisitions. We've picked up post Christmas. Different action figures, and I just ordered in the mail this. What is it? It is the True Force Designer Series Mega Man X figure. Very, very solid. I ordered that from Big Bad Toy Store, and then there's a Falcon Armor Mega Man X figure from Sentinel, I believe. I have that coming in the mail as well. So that's going to be like the last of my high end figure purchases for the time being.
Yeah. I rolled through Target today, and I picked up a Warpath from their Kingdom series.
Oh, nice! So they have it out in the wild.
Yeah, they do. They had a whole bunch of Optimus Primals, and there's a couple Black Arachnias, which I just let peg warm because honestly, I'm gonna say if people like that, that's great. I'm just not a collector of them. It's like I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Put it right back on there. Someone's gonna get it.
Yep.
Me. So I'm only interested in the vehicle, obviously like the Cyclonus stuff, and then stuff like that. But I'll tell you, the Warpath's a pretty solid little figure, man. It's
nice.
It's painted well. Gosh, man, it's like, I know people, and I've seen these, like where people have complained about like the quality of some of this stuff, but you know what?
Mhm.
I can see what they're talking about. Like there's some sloppier paint there, but it's nowhere near what it used to be, and I'm a lot more forgiving, I think, with it. So if you want to like build your collection out of these, I think it's totally valid. It's a really good option, especially for I think it puts a lot of these pieces in the hands of collectors who don't want to like drop like $150 on like masterpiece, like third party masterpiece, or even Takara Tomy masterpieces, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because I mean, of the recent releases of the Takara Tomy masterpieces, RC is a character that I've been wanting to pick up, but I just can't see myself. I mean, I've been disappointed with the last few Takara masterpiece releases, to where like I just don't want to drop that much for their figures. Like I would rather hope and wait for possibly a re-release of the fans toys version. And sure enough, like you mentioned, like these recent releases of War for Cybertron and Earthrise figures and Kingdom figures, like they're really great representations of the characters we've come to know and love and what we grew up with. And so like that's kind of like what I've been building up my Legends Deluxe and Leader class scale size figures up to that standard. So I've actually been going through my uh, previous collection in my cases and cleaning up and taking photos in anticipation to possibly sell to TF Source. Some older style figures that have been modernized and redone with this new line, to where like, yeah, I can part with this and possibly get something new.
Yep. Hey, we'll talk a little bit more about that after the Wandavision thing, but I wanted to give Jason what's going on in your side of the world.
Well, I'm still working from home, as everyone at my work seems like they're slowly coming down with current world event.
WFH. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like in the meantime, it's like I'm just continuing to pile up comics here. I mean, I think this might be the last batch of stuff I get for a little while, but they got a bunch of stuff. Mercy from Image, second volume of Once and Future, next to last volume of Gideon Falls. Bang, the new series from Matt Kint and Wilfredo Torres that Keanu gave a nice quote to, because Kint is also writing Keanu's he's co-writing Keanu's new series Berserker. And well, when I say co-writing, I mean basically Keanu's I imagine Keanu's just like pitching in like story ideas, dialogue bits, and Kint is just having to make all this work on the page. But I heard it's supposed to be big when the first issue hits in, I think, like March or April. And then like latest volume, like Immortal Hulk, after many months of it being like marginally discounted at Amazon and not in stock at all at cheap graphic novels. Then other stuff like Pandora and the Crimson Shell, Box Brown's Child Star, and Durf Backdurf's Kent State for Dead in Ohio. So there's some meaningful stuff in my to read list, but just only a little bit, I think.
Nice. You know what? Every time you say Gideon Falls, I think of Gravity Falls, and there's a character in Gravity Falls called Gideon.
Yes.
Just can't. I can't like split that out of my head. I'm not joking, man.
Lil Gideon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's that annoying little kid that's always making things like horrible for Dip and his sister, right?
Yeah. He's like a little southern. He's like a little southern psychic or something like that.
I thought he was supposed to be like a caricature of like a faith preacher, or like one of those.
I think there's some of that in there.
Yeah, I know there's a little bit but he's basically.
But a lot of used car salesmen in there as well.
Yeah, used car salesman. You just pile them all in. Pile all those stereotypes in. But every time you say, huh?
It's funny that you say that, because his dad is a used car salesman.
So it's genetic then. I get it. Yeah, but I tell you, it's like, based on what I've read so far, I mean, the art in the series is great. Andrea Sorrentino does great work, but so far, I don't know. It's like I'm I've come to realize that Jeff Lemire isn't nearly as good as a writer as I thought he was. So really, it's like if you're hearing me say Gideon Falls makes you think of Gravity Falls, you're probably better off spending some time there or rewatching episodes of that series than you are like investing in this series. And plus, it looks like they're pulling a really dick move as far as I'm concerned, because there's 5 volumes out, and then they released the 27th issue, which is the final issue, but it's not in the latest volume. If you want that final issue, you're going to actually have to like shell out for it, either physically or digitally, which I mean, it's triple sized. I mean, maybe if you buy it, there's like a nice, has a nice spine to it, so it'll look all right on your shelf. But man, it's like I don't know why they're doing that, or if they're just trying to trick trade witters like me into buying the final issue. They've got something else planned, like after that. To which I'll say like, hey, if you want me to jump off your series, hey, this is my reason right there.
That's some good notes there. If you want to watch Gideon Falls, Gideon Falls. Look at me. If you want to watch
it's not a TV series yet.
You can watch it on Disney Plus. That's all there. Like Disney Plus, like is got a lot of cool crap on it. So yeah, it got a lot.
Speaking of which,
and even more to come.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. Have you like done a real deep dig in like all the stuff there? I actually bookmarked like a whole bunch of stuff and threw it in my profile. I was just like, I don't know. It's like bookmarking or favoriting it, whatever.
I did too, especially like I love how it's like separated by brand. Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and of course, looking deeper into the Marvel side. I mean, there's a bunch of like classic cartoons that I enjoy watching, and of course, like some of the modern animated shows that I haven't dove into too deeply just yet. But that material is there for my consumption, and I really like what Disney Plus has done with original Star Wars programming, and now we're starting to really dip into the Marvel side of original programming.
Yeah. So, since Jason was partly segueing into it anyway, Wandavision.
I was trying.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit. Like episodes 1 and 2. Thoughts, gentlemen? What did you think?
I don't think WandaVision has hold up in the retro sitcom stuff as well as MASH. I mean, that's just me saying it.
I think they were aiming for a little something different than MASH, though. MASH is it's got its thing, but we should talk about MASH on like a whole different stream, because
it's the only one that only retro sitcom I'm watching right now. So it's the bar at the moment.
MASH is complex. It really is. It's like complicated, right? But let's not talk about that now. But it's a good one. Bookmark that one, Jason. We're definitely talking about MASH. The TV series.
I'll put a pin in it.
By the way. TV and the movie. Exactly. Exactly. But okay, so WandaVision. So you know what? It's like I Love Lucy, Bewitched. Like this is like the format of this. How shall we say it?
Those 50s, 60s type family sitcom type shows.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it kind of follows a lot of that. Well, the Andy Griffith show always had like that moral thing in there. So I don't know. I mean, that's fine, and I've watched the Andy Griffith show, cute. But it always had that, I feel like it had that moral component to it. And that's all right. Unlike MASH, anyway. But like I Love Lucy and like Bewitched. I don't even remember. I think it was just like pure like, hey, here's here's situation A, and then there's a misunderstanding. It's like the classic formula for an old sitcom, right? And like, one acts on this assumption and then the other's acting on this assumption. It's like Three's Company like did the same thing. They did it really well. But I'm throwing this out because it's important for like the structure of what's actually going on, right? like in the actual episode, because this is like, okay, what are you watching? You know, what's going on here? You know,
they're cashing in a lot of faith that that you've seen enough of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that you're going to like watch this and go, okay, I don't know what they're doing here, but I've got enough invested in the MCU to like stick around and see where they're going with this.
Agreed.
Because these first 2 episodes, I mean, the sitcom stuff was fine. I mean, it's one thing to just kind of like play through the familiar tropes, but it's another just like to go through them again, and not actually do a whole lot that's new with them. I will admit that the magic show in the second episode that actually was pretty funny,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as like the overall like sitcom-y stuff or the actual funny, I don't know. It's like I wasn't feeling it. I just didn't like feel like there was. I mean, like, yeah, they're playing with the formula, but it's like they're not doing anything like really anything new to it.
Yeah, well, we have, in my opinion, we've got so like episode 1. First of all, there's one thing that you have to remember. This is not just a sitcom. This is somebody imagining their life as a sitcom, and that makes a big difference here.
And we know who it is and we have a pretty idea who it is at the end of the second episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's and yeah, they drop some hints here and there. There's plenty of Easter eggs in here. Oh, what's that one line? Oh, there's my vision with the indestructible head. That's supposed to be a line about like
that's just really dark if you think about it for a second.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny that she says that, because if I remember correctly, Vision's head was destroyed in obtaining the Mind Stone in Infinity War, and it's been a while since I've seen Endgame, but I don't recall him ever being resurrected.
Nope, he wasn't. As far as we know, he's still supposed to be dead.
Right.
So as far as what's going on here, it's like, Wanda has vaguely defined reality warping powers in the comics. In the films, she's got less well defined like telekinetic, like flashy powers.
By the way, if anyone's listening, spoilers. Okay, so there's your warning. We already dropped into the spoiler territory like 5 minutes ago, but still, please continue, because actually, Jason, I want to know some of your perspective on this. Go
okay,
on. Sorry.
It's like it looks like whatever they're doing here. It's like it seems that they're trying to tie in. They're drawing from Wanda's powers as they've been defined in the comics, as opposed to how we've seen them in in the movies. But in this case, it's like it's kind of hard to say. Like, is it actually going to be the case, or are they just setting us up for some kind of rug pull? It's like, because like I said, it's what we're seeing here. It's like it's a lot of stuff we haven't seen her do in the movies yet, but it's stuff that like wouldn't be too far removed from the comics. I mean, her powers have always been really vaguely defined, so it's kind of hard. So it's kind of hard to say, to put like a list on what she can and can't do. I mean, at one point she went and remade all of reality by just saying no more mutants. That's how we got the whole House of M crossover. And now that I think about it, that's probably what they're going here. Like the writers heard about, wow, she did this. Hey, that gives me an idea. So
that's an interesting theory right there. You're thinking that this could be their way of segueing mutants into the MCU?
Possibly. I mean, I think it's like, I don't think that Kevin Feige has said that like mutants aren't going to be in the MCU for a while. Well, Deadpool excluded, it seems, because apparently like, they're working on Part 3 right now. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like her they looked at what her reality warping powers as they were used in House of M, and they figured, okay, well, if she can remake reality like this, maybe we can create some sort of pocket universe where she can just hey, go and be with Vision. And shut the outside world out. That's what it seems like is going on here. But then, as we also saw, there's also people who are trying to get into her reality, and trying to contact her as well.
Yeah. Really interesting concept. Like we have some hints of what's going on the outside, but not much. Just little drops here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like
there is one. I will say one thing.
the helicopter has the same sword icon on it that we saw at the end of episode 1, for example.
That's what I was going to say, and I think that the guy we saw at the end of episode 2, I think he also had the insignia on his on the back of his uniform as well.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So we're dealing with sword then, basically.
yeah, but way I've heard it, at least the rumors are that Sword in the comics stands for Sentient Worlds Observation Division, which is like the interstellar version of Shield.
Right.
This time, I think I heard that it's something to be it's supposed to stand for something along the lines of Sentient Weaponized Robot Observation Division.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah. Okay. So, I watched it and I was like, okay, there's things I wasn't. It was like just seeing the episodes. It's like, oh, okay. So, I think that there were some spots in it where is she losing control of her environment or what's going on? Why would like there's parts where it seems like the illusion's being broken for some reason.
And I liked when that happened in the first episode because up until like that point when his boss starts choking on dinner, it's been shot just like a 50 sitcom. I mean, it's like the camera angles and everything. It's
Yep.
it's just like those old school old timey sitcoms. But then
Mm-hmm.
when he starts choking, that's when the camera work starts changing, and it's like to do something more natural and like more like in the moment. So like
Mm-hmm.
I think it's nice like indication that hey like that the reality like isn't it's like it isn't solved like that as much as one is trying to control things she apparently does not her control over this reality is not absolute and I think it's just going to like keep breaking down as the series goes on.
Vision help him.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, right? Like that there's just a little bit of a slap of reality in that one. So um just just kind of like I don't think that there's really enough here for us to make any like absolute conclusions on outside like, hey, it's entertaining for the
And
most part.
like yeah, and I like the Easter eggs as well, like the commercials between like the halves of the episodes.
Yeah, like the Stark Industries toaster and the Von Strucker watch.
Yep. I mean,
Uh,
yeah, they even had the Hydra it's like logo on there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, indeed. So overall, what do you guys? It's not like it's not horrible, but then again, to me, it's like there's not much to go on. So I guess I'll have to keep watching. To watch as this thing unravels. I suppose. Hmm?
Yeah, I mean, for me, one thing that I could appreciate is someone who grew up with like Nick at Night and grew up with a lot of those old school shows like the Dick Van Dyke Show and Make Room for Daddy and My Three Sons and all that. Like I could appreciate how this show kind of captures that aesthetic and and the basically the vibe of like how storytelling was during that era of television. But like you said, I mean, it's still kind of like too early to gauge and to tell like uh where this is going. I found it charming, but then there were times where I was easily distracted, like looking at my phone and looking up stuff and things like that. It didn't necessarily like capture me like 100%, but again, like you said, it's a little bit too early to tell.
It's like if there's a lot of stuff that we have to take on faith that they're going somewhere interesting with this. And I think that those parts where like it shows reality breaking down were more interesting than the sitcom stuff, which
Hmm.
as I said, it's like it's bog standard sitcom stuff. Even though like there's some clever moments like the magic show, which was fun.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you 100%. I'm like, yep. Here's what's gonna happen, and then I mean,
That was my mother's piano.
yeah, I know. um, I like the first one where what do we do here? Like in his
Mhm.
job? Like, so I guess I'll throw that out too. It's like Vision doesn't know what's going on. He seems to be drug along, in my opinion. What do you think?
Mm,
Well, he was dead the last time we saw him, so.
Yeah, are we dealing with? Yeah, and that's another question that there's no answer to. When? Right? I
Mhm.
mean, like, when is this taking place? How much of this is illusion? Is like Vision? Is this, post Endgame? Because if it's post Endgame, there's a lot of imagination going on here, right?
right.
Yeah. So I mean, like, no answers to these questions, but definitely there are questions.
Let's see. Didn't Wanda wasn't Wanda one of the ones who was snapped out of existence at the end of
Yeah.
Infinity
Yeah,
War?
she came back because I remember that big fight scene
Hmm.
where with all the women of Marvel, like taking the fight to Thanos and crew, and she was resurrected. However, Vision wasn't necessarily like he was destroyed before the snap, so like he wasn't wiped out of existence. He was actually murdered.
Hmm.
So now, was the Mind Stone something that Shuri was like trying to copy?
Now that's another thing too. She was trying to replicate or make a backup of Vision's AI in Wakanda, but how much of that was they didn't finish, but how much of it was completed?
Hmm.
95%, 98%, who
Mm,
knows? So that could be Vision's segue you know, back into the MCU, who knows?
yeah. Yep. Just those little open, things that were there, and I think,
And
if
I
they
think the
were
smart
going
money
to.
on this is on being set post Endgame.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that's right. I would say that's right. I don't know why they wouldn't. Why they would, like. Although they have talked about like the Black Widow series or movie or something like that, but um, uh, we have this.
Hmm.
Yep.
Let's put it that way. We have this, and it doesn't seem to be, something that it seems like. I would say that this is probably going to be more of a, like, from this point onward, series. So,
Well, the,
if
w-
because retconning something like this would be kind of like, just tossing it in like an earlier thing would be a little weird. And they
yeah.
could do it,
Hmm.
but I don't know if they should or would want to. I'm not the director. Ask Kevin
Hmm.
Feige. He knows everything. Producer, Mr. Producer himself. So yeah. So any other comments on that one? I mean, not really, huh? Not
Not
much.
re- Not really. I mean, it does have me a little bit. I've always been stoked for Falcon and Winter Soldier, that series to come out, but just seeing the production quality of this show, like, just kind of gets me a little bit more amped for that show as well, and even Loki, because I mean, with we've talked about Mandalorian the past few weeks, and
Mhm.
just what that show has done for Star Wars makes me want to see more work come or more stories told in a television series format for that brand. And with Marvel, I want to see more from their side as well. I don't think this is. I mean, it's too early to tell. It's not necessarily a strong start per se, but let's wait till season one is over before we can make that determination. But yeah, I mean, based off of these two episodes alone, I mean, I find it charming, and I like what they're trying to present here. But as a Marvel fan, I mean, I'm kind of more impatient on finding out, like, what is the overall end game here, or what this is all about, like whether this is Wanda's imagination, or if she's being held captive somewhere and they're trying to deep dive into her consciousness, like what's going on here. I'm really eager to know what this reality is all about. And so, at least with the first two episodes, I see it more of being that kind of like 50s sitcom type show more than delving into, like, the comic booky type of storytelling right now.
So I would be surprised if they like pulled out more later in the series about some of the trivialness that we're watching in these two episodes.
Yeah.
You know, I would be surprised and like, oh, that's why they did that. But you know, I don't think there's going to be a big thing about that. I think there's going to be some nuggets here and there, and that's about it. You know.
Yeah, I think they've done enough good stuff in the past, and I'm willing to stick with them to see where they're going with this. I got the idea this is that everything they're setting up here is going to pay off at some point down the line.
Agreed.
I
Agreed.
I could see that. Yeah, there's going to be a big payoff eventually. Because I mean, my expectation, at least right now, is that WandaVision, Doctor Strange, two, and Spider Man are starting to delve into this multiverse type concept, and I'm just hoping that WandaVision is the payoff I'm kind of like thinking about. But we'll soon see.
Yep. Yep. Just stay tuned, as they would say at the end of these sitcoms. So
Mhm.
Until next week, sir.
until next week. So yeah, outside of that, I think that's a pretty good way to kind of wrap that up because there's not really much to say. I know that I saw a few sites out there like they like broke it down. I mean, I watched maybe the first like 3 minutes of their thing, and I'm like, okay, that's either true or you're just grasping at straws. But there's no way to actually tell what you're saying. There's no way to say that what you're talking about is, you know, that's the intent. So I think, you know, you always do have that. And I'm not poo pooing them. I'm just saying, like, well, okay, that's a great theory. We'll just have to see what they actually intend. So, um, but on the subject of really cool TV shows, so you know, I was talking with Jason last night when we were recording the comics podcast, or just before it or afterwards. I was talking about like some of the old OAVs, like Bubblegum Crisis
Mm.
and like AD Police and things like that. And like, you know, I saw a clip on YouTube, you know, where people were, you know, where someone was giving a commentary about some of these. Man, I just forgot how awesome that animation looked and how much, you know, how much effort they threw into these things, you know.
Hmm.
I mean, and even Pat Labor, right? Like the movies look insane, but I still think the TV and some of the OAVs they still look pretty good, you know, for their time. Remember, this is all, you know, today I think it's taken for granted that stuff is just done with a computer.
Hmm.
But this is like we painted the cell, we took a picture of it, and then we went on, you know, and then we took the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, and you know, and yeah, anime has traditionally always been like limited animation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, so what's limited animation? Anyone got a good definition? Like limited animation, like Filmation did limited animation, right? So you had like He-Man is one of those things. It's essentially, I think it's not really Filmation, but it's made by the same guy. The original He-Man cartoon.
Lou Schneider.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, where they reuse key pieces of animation, or
Hmm.
they reuse kind of key scenes, or you know, or they have, you know, not everything in a frame is animated. I mean, Myron, you're the art guy, so I'm kind of like leaning on you if you have any insight on this one. But you know, seeing a lot of that, it's just kind of amazing to think like
Yeah,
nowadays, like that's how they used to do it.
yeah. I mean, I can't really speak like technically, but
Nah.
basically what you're describing, which I understand, and I see this in a lot of animation from like back in the '80s and the '90s, in which like if you watch, let's say you watch five He-Man episodes consecutively, you're gonna see the same animation cells, the same animation stills and screenshots, just shot up against a different background, in which there's not a whole lot of, I mean, it's still a lot of work, but it's not a lot of work in animating the character in every freaking pose imaginable. And so like you might see a shot of like a close up shot of a character saying, "Oh no, they're coming right for us," and then like they'll use that same shot later on saying, "Oh, by the way, I did this accomplishment," and it's limited in the way that they're using character cells. And
Mm,
so same thing with He-Man, like you'll notice like their running animations, like it's the same across every episode.
mhm.
And so it's just shot up in a different background. And
Yep.
so but with anime, I don't know. Like I recently watched Appleseed on Amazon Prime,
Mm,
and I don't know if it's maybe like their art style or like the way they shoot it. I've never really notice limited animation, so to speak, unless it's like, just a still shot of a character and they're like, or two characters and they're just speaking and they're not moving as much to where like, okay, because it takes like approximately like 20, was it 24 frames a second, so that's 24 drawings for like a second of movement. That's a lot of work. So
mhm.
I never really noticed that in watching like a early 90s, mid 90s anime though.
Mm. Yeah, I think it also depends as well.
Yeah.
So television series would probably have less um less because of the production. It's like, okay, hey, we have X amount of days to do things, so it's going to have more of that limited animation rather than
Yeah.
using more of your cells to kind of pull things together, or more, more fluid like animation, or more detailed even. So OAVs, so it's like TV, OAVs, movies, and that kind of that order, right?
Mhm.
So, and you might see something, and not all, like I said, you're right. Not all anime is like that, but you do see it.
Oh
Um,
yeah, you do see, like, you're totally right. Like when it comes to like a TV series, like the production timelines are a lot shorter than it would be for like an OAV or a movie. Like an OAV, they might have a lot more time, but then they're doing like a, let's say, two hour OAV or like a three episode 1 hour OAV. It's not that long to where like they can put more resources and quality behind it. Whereas in a TV series, like it's like, hey, we need to get this. We're starting pre-production of this series, which we plan to air. The fourth quarter of the following year. We need to get this going now.
And if you can't get this episode out for Phil Tuesday at 8 o'clock time slot, it's going to be your head. God damn it!
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. So I remember reading horror stories about like the creators of what was it? The director, it was like the director of one of the Gundam series. I want to say it was Seed or Seed Destiny. Just like the stresses and expectations, because Seed did pretty well. Actually, it did very well to where like, okay, we're gonna do a sequel, Seed Destiny, and the expectation of the sequel was very high, but it ended up being quite weak just because of like stresses amongst like the leadership and shifts in storytelling. Like what was originally planned ended up not coming out to fruition. And so the stresses of like meeting those deadlines and working those schedules, I can imagine, are unbearable to most people. So there's both a pro and con in which like why I'm not working in that field now, even though that's something I've always wanted to do. Um, there I do enjoy my free time, but yeah, I mean it's really cool going back and watching some of these older OAVs because, like I said, I'm a big Appleseed fan, and I haven't seen the original Appleseed since it aired on Sci-Fi back when Sci-Fi was cool. Back
Yeah.
back in the '90s, they used to have the Saturday morning, anime block, and I'm going back and watching it. I'm like, man, dude, I forgot how like dope this one was. And my favorite one, of course, is the CG one that they did back in like 2004, 2005. But yeah, I mean, the quality for what the original animation style looked like was really fantastic. And I mean, even last week when we were talking about Macross, Do You Remember Love? I mean, the animation for that dogfight sequence was like, oh my goodness, like I don't remember this shit.
Yeah.
So that was very
Yeah. I think we're going to be talking about that one soon. But yeah, when you compare it to the TV series, and I'm not saying TV series is bad. It definitely, it's it was before it, but yeah, the movie production just kind of upped all the quality of like it. And I mean, like, you could watch that thing unsubtitled and just watch it for like the action scenes. It's amazing. It is just a work of art, And I'm not saying that is gone nowadays. You do have contemporaries who, in the anime industry who do that kind of a thing, where it's highly detailed stuff like that, using the computer graphics and coloring to the best effect and stuff. And a lot of that's still drawn and then just scanned in or just drawn on a scanner. I don't know the proper term for those things, but yeah.
Yeah, but just to interject, like I think part of that appeal comes to the fact knowing that everything that we see in like something like Do You Remember Love was done by hand. Like some guy actually drew all these little details you see on it's like in the animation there, and just like it's like so completely touched by hand. Even though it's like I guess I could say I can't say I don't know exactly when like computer stuff like Japan really started using computers in their animation, but I feel pretty confident in saying that Do You Remember Love was probably something that was still probably done entirely by hand. Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
And you know what? That is a lost art of animation that, when a movie or a person or a studio does that by hand, I have like greater respect for that animation. Like I would say, like, at least in the US realm, Don Bluth was one of the like best like animators like in my lifetime. Like I love like his expressiveness with like Dragon's Lair and the Space Ace games. I loved like American Tail. Like he just
I was gonna say
like
that.
like all of his characters. What was that one? The Secret of Nim. All those characters just had like a certain expressiveness to them, and those were all hand drawn. And those were like animators like drawing and looking in a mirror and making those expressions and like capturing that look. And that was all done by hand. And that is a craft that I think is, I want to say dead. I can't think of the last like hand drawn animation I recall watching. But do
Yeah.
you, like, to Jason's point? Yeah. Do you remember Love? Seeing how those mechanics in the Veritech fighters and the SDF-1, all those like details like on the machine parts, that is like super impressive.
Yeah.
But then like the character details alone are like really impressive as well.
So that one battle scene between Max and Miria, where Miria is still sitting in like he follows her into the the Meltrandi ship, because that's what they are. And like they wind up blowing out all the lights.
Mm-hmm.
And then all you see are like gun flashes of them in different times, like trying to fight each other in the dark. It's just like,
Awesome.
wow, just is insane to me. It's just like, that's some cool shit. So there's one.
And shifting to American animation, like since we've been on the topic of Marvel earlier this year, I think all of you can agree, like, X-Men, was a fantastic animated cartoon back in the 90s, and Spider-Man as well. And that started Spider-Man really started utilizing that kind of like mix of animation and CG. That was kind of like one of the first animated television shows I remember that kind of technique being used with. But later on,
You're talking about the Fox Kids TV show, right? That was awesome. I love that. Spider-Man is radioactive. Like the song just sticks in my head.
Exactly, like that. To me, that's still like the best Spider-Man cartoon. And then when I think of X-Men, I really love that Sunbow X-Men where Wolverine was like Australian, and
oh man, it's like just remembering that makes me laugh.
And, like, I love the animation quality of that, but then like the '90s one actually took the look of like Jim Lee's design and gave it that depth with the dark shadow tones and just like strong lines. It actually like I'm not saying it's like the Batman of Marvel cartoons, but it reminded me of Batman the animated series, where Batman itself was like a dark and moody cartoon, kind of like a murder mysteries and detect like dark detective cases, and X Men just brought that kind of darkness of like struggling to survive in a society where everybody hates us, yet still protecting society from the dangers that the mutant world could bring and jeopardize, all the work that we have done. And I loved like the earlier seasons of the X Men, because later on, I think around season 4, season 5, it started to kind of like soften up and get toony, and that was like close to the sunset end of like the X Men series. But the early first 3 seasons were very expressive and very darkly tonal. I loved it.
Yeah. You know, and I know that the X-Men cartoon that they did, I liked the style. I really did. And I know that they tried to, translate some of the plot lines that were in some of the comics. The one that kind of comes to mind is Days of Future Past.
Hmm.
But and I think it was a way better effort than they had ever done before with trying to introduce an audience to some of those things and getting them into it. I think of when I was Saturday mornings. Hey, this is what we are, man. So and I've mentioned to you guys before, but the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, that's what I watched when I was a kid, because I
I,
love
I
I love that stuff, man.
I did
And
too.
and for its time, I was like, hey, this is cool. I kind of look at it now and go like, yeah, it's kind of cool in a nostalgic way.
Hmm.
But I definitely like stuff that had came after that, right? So it was it's just kind of a natural evolution. I mean, if you look at like Spider-Man, you're the Spider-Man dude. Like animated wise, you had that thing, what was that kind? It's just Spider-Man, the one that has the catchy 60s, or is it 60s or
Oh,
70s theme
there,
song, 60s
yeah,
theme song.
yeah. There was,
Spider-Man,
yeah,
like that one, right?
that
Yeah,
was
that's
the '60s
'60s
one.
one.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't tell you that I've watched more than 2 episodes of that. I'm not
Me,
kidding.
me
Like,
neither. Me neither. Like I watched a few episodes, but you just know the theme song. That's how iconic it is.
Hmm.
and is that on Disney Plus too? I
I believe it is. That cartoon is horrible. just like Spider-Man has a deep voice. Like, oh no, I better go fight the Green Goblin. I'm just not used to that.
Mhm.
But and you want to talk about limited animation? Like those shows have limited animation. But yeah, there was that. There was the '60s one, and then there was like the '80s Spider-Man, and then there was Spider-Man His Amazing Friends.
Mhm.
Those were like the early three.
Mhm. You know what I noticed is I don't know how I came across this, but we're talking about Chogokin, Bandai figures. They
Uh
have
huh.
a leopard on one.
I saw that. I was like, that's so. I just, I just, I acknowledge it and I acknowledge it and I accept it for what it is. But I hate that so much, dude. I'm like it's like
Wow.
you're supposed to web sling and swing through the city, yet you ride motorcycles and have a giant robot and fight crimes. I mean, I get it. It's totally like Japanese Sentai robot style, but I mean that like Spider-Man having a robot, I can't fathom that, dude.
So last year I went to Ushicon here in the Austin area, and yeah, this is just before they started locking things down. Before they declared the pandemic to be a thing. Oops, did I say that right? Yeah, I did. Anyway, I went there, and one of the panels was like how American um,
Excuse me.
pop culture influenced Japanese pop culture, and he did talk about that show. Um,
Hmm.
And my daughter was like, she was off in some other rooms and just kind of looking around. Then she came in, she joined, and at the end of it, he's like, "I'm going to show you the first episode of the Japanese Spider-Man." And she's like, "What are we watching?" Like, she walked in right after this. She's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's Japanese Spider-Man, kiddo." Um, and it was it's and the guy was talking about like I had no idea. By the way, I've never seen any of this outside of like clips here and there. Like, I think Marvel did a thing like 5 years ago where they did some of these clips from that show, and they posted on their website or whatever. But anyway, I had never really seen this, and he was sitting there describing how they literally got a spider, like a real spider, like, and this spider was the embodiment. Essentially, is his sensei. So every time that his sensei would talk to him, they would just show this picture of this spider kind of like dangling there and just wiggling his legs, and you're just like, what? So like, and there is zero, like, there's nothing here that is like what you would, outside of the suit, that you would recognize as being Spider-Man.
Right.
I think like nothing. Now I know that. Wait, I can't remember it. No. Did Into the Spider-Verse, did they even touch on any of that? I don't even remember now because I haven't rewatched
The
it.
movie did not.
Okay.
However, the comics did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leopardon like got a big like moment where he charges the inheritors, and they just like wave him off because hey, got to show the bad guys are bad somehow. He did show up for the Spider-Geddon follow up series for whatever it's worth, but I mean, I think everyone's willing to acknowledge him now because we have an ironic appreciation of how cool like Sentai Spider-Man really is. I mean, hey, don't take our word for it. Just watch Dan Larson's like the history of like Japanese Spider-Man.
Yeah, you should watch that. I like that one. That was good. But yeah, I just like, it was mucho bizarre to watch that show. So yeah, for what it is now, probably anything that they have retconned it, or just like folded into different like alternate universes that other alternate universes might have crossed over into. That's fine. I'm good with that too.
But see, it's also kind of funny of you mentioning that about how American pop culture has influenced Japanese pop culture, because I mean for years like Japanese pop culture has been a huge influence on American pop culture, like with a lot of anime and video games and whatnot. And I remember my years growing up in Okinawa, I remember how big X-Men got in Japan, in the in the early mid 90s, and then Ninja Turtles blew up out there as well. And so we're looking at today like how big the MCU and even DC pop culture is blowing up over there in Japan. And the reason why I say that is like, when you guys get a chance, there's this anime on Disney Plus called Future Avengers, and it was actually like an anime series that aired in Japan, and it's basically like these the Avengers rescue these kids that they get granted like powers to help the Avengers in their fight against evil, but the animation quality, especially like on Iron Man, who they make look like that kind of stereotypical like Japanese mech style. Like, I mean, he looks really cool. And so like this is one of like the coolest like anime representations of our characters that I've seen, so definitely check it out. But I mean, the Japanese have produced, quite a bit of like Marvel anime throughout the years. I mean, they've done X-Men, they've done Blade, they've done Iron Man a couple times. So I mean, they really dig, the Marvel material.
Yeah, I guess I can't blame them really. So yeah, so yeah, so there was the 60s, then there were actually two series. I think of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and then I think of that other Spider-Man cartoon, which is also on Disney Plus. No plugs, but seriously.
Which one?
The one that's just called Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's the '80s one.
Yeah, it's the '80s one, right? So
Mhm.
that one's also on there. And by the way, I haven't watched any of those actually. So it's weird. Maybe I've seen one or two of them, but the one I remember watching the most when I was a kid was that one. And I can't think. It's like, and they wound up introducing several characters in just that, from the Marvel universe.
Mhm.
And of course, you get, good old Stan Lee narrating the tops and the bottoms of the episodes here and there. So that's kind of cool. But as for that, I guess that just leads you right into the '90s and like, well, I think that the revival really started with Batman the animated series in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Yeah, so but
I,
I remember watching that in the afternoons. I don't know how it was broadcast wherever you saw it, but like I remember they broadcast that stuff in the afternoons, and I was just
what
like all over it.
what
Huh?
Batman?
Yeah, the animated series, right?
Batman actually surprisingly started off primetime. When it first aired, I can't remember. Like I know it
It was
came
like
on
in
at
like 7 o'clock on Sundays.
Yeah, it came on like 7 o'clock. I couldn't remember what day it was,
Huh.
and even like Batman Beyond premiered prime time. I think the first two episodes, and then of course it went to Kids WB. But yeah, Batman actually started off prime time because it was a little darker, and then yeah, they put it on the Fox Kids block in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah, that was like watching that was just boom. It was just it was so cool.
And I think that show actually like really kicked off like the contemporary modern like comic book animated series formula. That was the bar, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you know I'm not saying like X-Men copied it, but X-Men
No,
had its dark tone like that, and then
we could say that they rode the wave.
yeah, I mean it really opened up like, oh wow, like comic book cartoons are starting to become more successful again, because I mean in my memory, it was more toy geared cartoons that kind of built up that popularity in the 80s and 90s. Like yeah, there was Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is Amazing Friends and Super Friends, like those type of cartoons. But it seemed like your popular cartoons back in the 80s and 90s were like your Transformers, your Ninja Turtles, like your He-Mans, like those cartoons that generated toy numbers and fed off of each other. Like comic books weren't necessarily like the forefront, so to speak. And I'll be honest, I didn't start collecting comic books myself until like the early '90s. With realistically, it was I think it was X-Men. It was X-Men, the animated series, that made me get that Jim Lee bifold #1 comic, which I bought for $5 back in the day.
So I'm gonna. Hey, here's kind of a thing. I want to try. I just want to try this. So like, depending on how it is, the most up to about 1996. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
up to 1996. So that kind of covers a good, like from when we were born to childhood kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
What were the five most influential cartoons or anime you watched at before 1995?
Man,
Spider-Man, the '94 Spider-Man was up there for me.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
pretty good.
Dragon Ball is up there for me.
Yep.
Um, you said from when up, like from when at childhood up until '96.
Yeah, about 96. Yeah, 96.
So I'd say Dragon Ball, Spider Man, Transformers. Um, hmm. That
Okay.
that that that's
Well, you can think about it some more. What about you, Jason? What you got?
man, it's like
It's like
it's been so long, and it's like just trying to remember. It's like what it's like as far as influences go. Man, it's hard to say.
well, I'll
But as far
tell
as like
you.
stuff I remember like liking, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like that Batman the Animated Series. I'll go with
Yep.
X-Men as well.
Yep.
And I got good fond memories of sitting down every weekday to watch like Transformers and second GI Joe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
man, it's like I guess for something else that I can throw in around the same time.
Robotech.
Ah, man, it's like I think I remember watching it as a kid, but then I kind of like grew out of it. And plus, I always remember like when like why is everyone changing like from week to week? What's it's like why are there like there's one week it's about like this group of characters and then next week it's about this other different characters. I mean, I know it wasn't like that, but still there was times when I felt like it because I was a kid and I didn't know anything about say about what was going on with that show. But I guess I guess I'd probably want to like throw out some like a I guess I probably want to like include something like Animaniacs or Tiny Toons.
Oh
It's like
yeah.
just like because I remember like those were stuff like I just like absolutely love sitting down to watch coming at home. Well, I mean, I just any kind of like Warner Brothers cartoon like that was based off their like that traded on their like their classic stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Good point. I myself, for sure. Yeah, and it is. I'm not gonna pull punches here. Battle of the Planets, even though it had like really crappy editing, was highly influential when I first saw it like airing. And I figured out it was Science Ninja Gotchamon, and later on I watched that, and I still like to me that was like the anime that made me love anime. And then there was, Robotech as well. Very influential. Transformers, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It's the reason why I keep talking about it. I mean, Batman the Animated Series, and then X-Men, the Fox Kids one, and yeah, Spider-Man, but I would definitely put that in there if I were to extend mine out to like a top 10. But but I also go with like Jason's like recommendation for like Tiny Toons. Like Tiny Toons was amazing. Like I was just glued to my screen, entertained by that. And Tiny Toons and Animaniacs naturally. But that I don't remember Animaniacs time frame. It was like wasn't that more
93.
Yeah, it's almost mid. It's creeping up on mid 90s. But certainly it came afterwards, right? Let's see here. Yeah, there's a few others in there that I would definitely call influential. So I guess it depends upon. It's funny. I remember watching Voltron. And I remember kind of liking it, but not really jumping. Like I was like, oh yeah, it's cool, but I never really like got into it. I don't know why. I didn't hate it. I was just like, oh, there's an anime series and it's got this and that in it, and it's got a robot in it. Cool. Sentai. Cool. All that.
And I love Voltron. Enough to where I bought this damn Solo Chogokin Voltron. Very profound brand for me growing up, and also as a toy line. But I think my last two influential cartoons would be like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because I was like,
I
think I was like in fourth grade by the time that came out and blew up, and I just remember just the buzz amongst my friends. Like we were all about like Transformers prior, but then once the Turtles came out, like we got toys, a TV series, and a movie by 1990. And so just like the Turtle Power movement, like it just like it just flooded like your toy chest. It broke parents' wallets, so that was like another influential series for me. And my last is going to be a cheat. I'm going to say it's Nintendo cartoons. So the Mario Brothers series, the Zeldas on Fridays, and then Captain and the Game Master on Saturday. Because of course by then, in the mid to late '80s, Nintendo was the household name of video game consoles. and to see these characters that you play as on television, you were always kind of tuning in and watching. Oh, look at Mario! Like I've done that firepower before too. So I used to love those cartoons as well.
I get what you're saying, Myron. Though it's like for me, these it's like I remember like loving that stuff as a kid. These these days, I tend to think, how did I ever like this at all?
You know what? Like I bought the Legend of Zelda, the complete series, and I find it charming, but at the same time, I'm like you, Jason. I'm like, dude, like this shit didn't hold up too well. Like, just kind of like Link sounds annoying, and he's not like a hero. But some of them don't hold up well. Like Captain N, I think holds up pretty well, except Simon's a little prima donna, and
Except
Mega
no one
Man.
making the show actually had any idea what the characters they were using were actually like in their games.
Exactly. I mean, I think with Captain N, like I watched them so much, like through because I used to record Saturday morning cartoons. So I used to have like the VCR in the living room, and once I found out how to work programming and timing shows, I used to like, okay, record the ABC block, at this time, and then the VCR in my room record like the NBC block at this time. So I'd always record these cartoons, and all the way up until college. After I ended up throwing out all my VHSs, I've had all these classic cartoons on VHS, and I would watch them all the time. So like, and that included Captain N. So those cartoons are like timeless to me, to where like I could recite lines from certain episodes or remember certain episodes so vividly that I could tell you like, oh, this is that episode where Mega Man gets a heart for his birthday, and and he get and Dr. Light makes Mega Girl for him. So like I find those cartoons charming and classic. But yeah, to your point, it's like, yeah, they didn't really look too deeply into the source material. Yet, yet Castlevania's darker, so of course they're going to have to like kind of lighten Simon up a bit. And Mega Man, they just took off the crappy box design, and made a character off of that. And I'm like, dude, that's not he's not blue. So, but yeah, I mean, there's so many cartoons that have been inspired from comic books to toys to video games. Like, I mean, we've really had it great, and I don't really see like children these days unfortunately don't have that same type of uh kind of like representation, except for what Disney's putting out. Like I said, that like Disney's still putting out Avengers and Spider-Man cartoons. So is DC. DC still spouting out like different Batman and Superman related cartoons, but they don't hold a candle to like what we had. I think DC's last bomb show was uh Young Young Justice, and before that Justice League of America.
I thought you were going to say Teen Titans Go.
Well, Teen Titans Go is Teen Titans Go is comedy. I mean, that is a good little kiddie cartoon, but when it comes to like just like, oh man, awesome, like really serious drama stuff, like that was Young Justice. But Teen Titans Go is hilarious. I do love that show.
It's lighthearted. I mean, and that's cool. Um, I thought that I think it was just that was the one thing I liked about the Batman animated series. It was just dark, man. Like it was, and I really dug that. I still do. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I was like, wow, here's a show that it's not afraid to do this kind of stuff, and I'm like, just like dark, ironic endings, like just like, whoa, this is amazing stuff, Not everything was what's the word, Jason? A mega happy ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'll always remember because most of us probably have Batman the animated series on Blu-ray or some way of watching it, but I just remember one of these random episodes where like there's this one guy that like cussed out the Joker in traffic. He's like, "What? Why you? Why is
the Joker's favor?"
Yeah, Joker's favor, and like Joker spared his life if he would do something for him later on, and then of course like years later, Joker utilized this guy to try to pull off a scheme. But there's just these certain episodes that are just kind of like you want to turn off the lights and get like a bag of popcorn and watch because it's like really dark and moody. And I think that was kind of the inspiration from, of course, like the Tim Burton movies at that time, and that's what I love. Granted,
No. It's like Batman animated series came out after, right after Batman Returns.
that's right, but I'm just saying like the Tim Burton movies that kind of like inspired that darker tone.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I remember back then even though you're absolutely correct. People were like, "Oh my gosh, this," just the first Batman movie. They're like, "It's so dark,"
hmm
and I'm like, and you look at it now, it is and it isn't. Um, it's got some dark things to it, but yeah, absolutely. I think it also that helped push that, and it also was really cool that oh gosh, what was that guy's name? So Danny Elfman did the
Danny Elfman.
soundtrack for that,
Yeah.
and he did the soundtrack for the animated series.
hmm
Well, he did the theme for it, but it was Shirley Walker who did the music for the animated series.
Okay, yeah, it was okay. So I thought it was still pretty damn cool. I was like, hey,
yeah, because like that Batman animated intro kind of had that same like that kind of same tonal theme that the Tim Burton movies had. So I love how they kind of did their own theme for the animated series because if you listen to both the movies and the animated series theme, it kind of had they weren't the same, but it kind of had that very familiar moody vibe to the music, and I love that shit. So that that's why with the Batman the original Batman movies, I only own Batman and Batman Returns. Like I don't I mean I'll watch forever and Batman and Robin if I'm like super bored and there's nothing else on, but I'm just kind of like meh.
I was watching something that talked about like what was it? It was Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and
hmm
how the titles were potentially mixed up. Like, like the title should for Batman Forever should be called Batman and Robin because that's where he's actually introduced.
True.
And then Batman Forever would have probably been a better title for Batman and Robin. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah,
I didn't. I watched those movies and okay.
they are what they are.
Yeah. After all, that's what everyone wants is a Tommy Lee Jones that plays Two-Face for a short period of time.
And who can't abide by the Riddler's buffoonery.
Yeah.
Because he was one of the hot actors of, like he was one of those popular actors, and they just threw him in there.
It's like,
Holy
hey,
cow!
I could totally see Ace Ventura as a villain. Hey, let's get Jim Carrey.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get Jim Carrey in there. Let's it's can't use. I don't know why Michael Keaton didn't star in those films. I don't know if it's a contractual thing, but
He was getting tired of. He didn't think that Batman was being like the star of these movies anymore. It's like that they were just like making the villains are taking up too much screen time.
yeah. How
It's that-
forgettable?
that's the official reason.
How forgettable was it?
I can understand.
It was George Clooney and Val Kilmer. I don't even remember which one was in which. That's how bad it was. I think George Clooney was in the Batman and Robin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he was
okay.
in the fourth one.
Oh dear Lord, that movie's terrible. I'm sorry, it's not
the best.
great.
The best thing from that movie was probably Arnold Schwarzenegger's one-liners. Like they were pretty comedy.
Yeah.
Just chill, like
He was committed to the bit.
yeah.
he was. But other than that, it's like
If I want to see Arnold Schwarzenegger in a campy like sci-fi like film, I'll just watch Total Recall.
yeah,
I appreciate that one more than Batman and Robin. Or I think is that the one? Yeah, Batman and Robin. I guess.
yeah. I can agree with that, and that's why I really appreciated the the Christopher Nolan reboots.
Yeah.
So
Well, Tim Burton, he was really in charge of those first two.
yeah,
But then he pretty much was off. He was not on board the last two, right?
no, it was Joel
No.
Schumacher.
Okay, there you go. And you know what's funny is that here's the talk. I remember the talk at the time. Like people were talking about. Like, I'll talk about I think it's '89 Batman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, "So is Adam West gonna be in it?" Yeah, exactly. Like, so there was this, and this kind of addresses the whole like dark tone of the movie or whatever, you know. And it's really, if you look at it, it's a Tim Burton tone. But I digress. Tim Burton makes great films. When you look at Batman. And people were like, yeah, well, is it gonna have like, is he gonna cameo in it or something like that? You know, no, you're gonna cameo in it. No way. So it's just when you have um, these expectations, right? Like people had like this, like, okay, it's going to be like this because this is what I remember. How could it be like that? You know, how could it be this? And it's just a different change of how they wanted to present it. I think Tim Burton might have been the best thing for the Batman films, actually, to be honest with you. But then when the Christopher Nolan, films came around, they're like, "What's this?" Like, and I think the way it was described is people were like, "Oh, it's like a more realistic Batman, like if it was like real world."
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, and people were like, "So what was wrong with the other one?" And Tim Burton has quite an imagination. Go watch Edward Scissorhands, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and just take a look at the kind of universes. Any of his films, really, if you think about it, they're just that's his imagination on film. And it's been said, and I think Jason, you and I have talked about it. Like that Batman movie breaks a lot of Batman rules, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the whole like killing people and all.
Yeah, yeah. Surprised he's just pick up a pistol and start shooting. Anyway,
Getting really old school right there.
yeah, exactly. But when I actually, what was it? Batman Begins, right? That's the first movie for Batman.
For Nolan,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, for Nolan. Like, I did not see it in the theaters. I waited a while actually before I saw it. I still was kind of holding on to the fandom of the first two Tim Burton films. I was like, hey, I like the style. Why introduce a different style? And then when you watch it, you're like, oh, that's why.
I can see that. I can see that. I mean, I did see that in the theaters just because, like, I typically see any comic book movie in the theater. I mean, I just love, comic book based material, but I could totally see your point too because at the time the Burton movies were just like the bar for me, and I was kind of burnt with. I will admit I did see Batman Forever and Batman and Robin in theaters when they first released, and I was so burnt by them at that time to where like when a new Batman came out, I was just like, I don't know, dude. Like Christian Bale as Batman, like I couldn't see it. Michael Keaton had that. He was Batman to me, just like to most, you know, older fans. Like it might be Adam West, but and then I saw the Batmobile for Batman Begins. I'm like, dude, nothing can touch that iconic Burton Batmobile. I don't know, but I still gave it a shot. And to your point, I did love like the more realistic tone in the sense of like, this is more uh, a realistic reason of like him owning like a in Wayne Industries, there's like a military like technology division, and this is where he's getting his part, like his material from, and it just seemed like a more viable story to tell, to where like, oh, okay, like this is really this is a really dope concept because when you look at like the Burton Batmans where Joker's like, where does he get these wonderful toys? You really think about that. Like, did he make all this in the Batcave, or uh, did he buy this somewhere,
You're not supposed to think about that.
you're not supposed to think about that, but then like seeing the Nolan Batman, you do start thinking about that. Like, you know what? You're right. Has he always gotten his stuff from Wayne Industries, or did he just know how to make shark repellent? And yeah, he was that good, that smart. So just like in the animated series, like we find out that he
Because
had a
after you can make shark repellent, like everything else is easy.
yeah, for sure. But he actually had a mechanic in the animated series that actually built the Batmobile. Like he didn't do that himself.
I remember that episode. And like eventually, like some guy was able to track him down for the Penguin, saying, "I think these are parts for the Batmobile."
Yep.
He tried to sell the Penguin on this, and the Penguin said, "Okay, sure," and then he sent him down the river.
Yep. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I did like how like I said, I liked how Nolan's Batman kind of made it a little bit more realistic, and I'm really stoked to see what this new The Batman series is or movie series is going to be like. So,
Oh
um,
yeah, that's right. I kind of forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, so because the more I see Robert Pattinson's Batman outfit, like I'm like, dude, that's a dope design. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's not going to tie into our Joker movie, at least as far as I understand it.
Nope.
There's like that is a standalone movie. That movie,
hmm
that Joker movie, which is an awesome movie, but it's also not. I don't think it's supposed to be. It just and if anything, that feels like a real world Joker story. Like
yeah,
if anything else. What's the one we get in the Tim Burton Batman? Like he fell into a vat with some cards, and that's how
hmm
his skin got all white. Jack Napier. Which is like, okay, I'll buy it. Sure, why not? But this one, but that one there was like, wow, it was just really cool. I know people have compared it to what's it called, Taxi Driver. I've
hmm
never seen that movie.
I haven't either.
I think Sebastian said it's like, oh yeah, basically this is this is like a Taxi Driver style thing, except it's kind of goes into the Joker. So, but yeah, it's really really. Uh, I did see the Dark. Is it the what's the second movie, guys?
Dark
So
Knight.
The dark. Wait, there's Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Returns, and The Dark
No,
Knight
it was
Rises,
just the Dark Knight,
or The
and then the
Dark
Dark
Knight.
Knight Rises.
yep, exactly. So I love that. That's like my
Mhm.
favorite Batman trilogy film. I love I remember, Myron, we talked with Steve at work about that. Remember? He's like,
Yeah, like
this is like real world, like it's believable, like completely plausible, right?
and shout out to Steve because like Steve is the biggest Nolan fan ever, and of course when it came to the Batman movies, we were always like in deep conversations about that, and even now like we're he's watched it more than I have, but like Tenet, like he'll watch Tenet like each time and find some deeper meaning. Like he's like, hey, I watched Tenet again. Like, I found out something else new. And so we'll always talk about that because I will admit that like I've seen Tenet twice. And each time I watch it, I do gain more insight and perspective to it. But I will admit there are certain aspects that, especially like the 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 portion of time travel, like how time travel works in that movie, still fuzzes me a bit. But it is a really deep movie, and Nolan is a very deep storyteller. So like his rendition of Batman, I think was a welcome change, at least for me. When it comes to DC characters, that's my number one character from that umbrella of comic books.
So um, I really like Nolan's film. I have not seen Tenet. I like his films up until a certain point. and during definitely during that trilogy period,
Mm-hmm.
he was people pretty much classified him as a film noir director.
Mm-hmm.
But the irony of this is that one of his first movies was Insomnia.
Yeah, with
Mm.
not
Al
Robert De Niro,
Pacino
Al
and
Pacino.
Robin Williams.
Yeah, Robin Williams plays the bad guy. But, Al Pacino plays the L.A. detective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
That was a good movie.
and and people say he basically, it's like by redoing that film, he kind of flipped it on its head. It's like it's a film noir like version of it, but the irony is that film is completely about like his battle with insomnia and fighting the light. It's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of a strange dichotomy. Um, I can't say what's that Dunkirk, right? Did you guys see that?
No,
Hmm.
I own it, but I haven't watched it yet.
I've seen it.
I've seen it, and it's good. Bane plays a pilot. No, I'm just
Who,
kidding.
Tom, Tom,
Well, if you're
Tom
gonna
Hardy.
continue with that, like the Scarecrow also plays like it's like one of the soldiers who's escaping from the thing and has a bad experience when the ship goes down.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really dark film. Holy cow! Like and I have it. I have it on Blu-ray. I watched it when it came out, and it's a fairly intense and very. I like the tension in that film, and I think he does tension well. Um, and so I'll have to. Oh, what was the one? Interstellar, right?
The space,
I,
the space, spacefaring science fiction one.
Man, I
I,
saw that one, but I've totally forgotten about it. I liked it, but I've kind of forgotten about it. I need to
I
rewatch
haven't seen
that.
I haven't seen that one yet either because that one's like 3 hours. I
Yeah,
haven't
I
had
saw it in the theater.
yeah I haven't had time to sit down and watch that just yet. But
Mm-hmm.
my favorite of his is Inception, dude. That's my. I mean, aside from the Batman movies, like Inception is my jam.
Yep, Paprika 2.0. No, I'm just kidding.
All the cool people know what we're talking about.
Yep. Um, it's yeah. No, I liked Inception quite a bit, and I think Leonardo DiCaprio and company they do a really good job. Um, and I love the Rick and Morty parody on that one.
Hmm. Can't go
uh,
wrong with Scary Terry.
nope.
Hey, bitch. Hey, dog. We bought you some pants, dog. Don't worry about it, dog. Oh, bitch.
Oh, it's you guys.
Yeah,
I love it. That was just fantastic, man. It's like,
that's funny.
hey.
But
Uh,
I really it's a good day and age to be a comic book fan, a comic book nerd, because a lot of this stuff we grew up watching, whether it's cartoons or early renditions of movies or even reading the comic books. I think technology has brought it up to a point where we can actually start telling these stories in a much more realistic way. Because I remember when I first watched Blade, dude, I was like so mind blown on how awesome that movie was. Because my only exposure to Blade was through a cameo he had with Spider-Man, hunting Michael Morbius, and so like Blade was kind of like that start of like, oh man, that's dope, and then that was the start where we got X-Men after that, and then Spider-Man, and then Fantastic Four, and then as time progressed, we started getting more and more comic book movies, even based off of the Marvel universe. And then once Disney purchased Marvel and started doing the MCU movies with Iron Man, Cap, Thor, and
yeah.
Avengers, and so on, this genre has blown up to where non-comic book fans are even interested in these characters and these stories, to where they might start jumping in and start buying comic books to get a background story, or just get more invested into watching these other forms of media mediums, So like whether they play the games or watch shows. So I'm really excited, based on our earlier conversation about WandaVision, that Marvel is starting to roll out their television programming now
Yeah.
because I've been waiting for Falcon and Winter Soldier forever because I think originally it was kind of slated to come out last year, but obviously due to certain reasons, productions been delayed and things dates have been pushed back. But this year we're finally getting WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. Loki is looking possibly like a maybe late 2021, early
So
2022 release.
here's my prediction about those, and then I want to reminisce a little bit about the X-Men movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so WandaVision has a lot riding on it.
Yeah. I
If
can.
it's not successful, and I mean, we didn't give it like glowing reviews. We liked it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not like it sat there and was like, oh, it was immediately engaging. Um, Jason was probably watching it, checking off, his tropes book, going like, yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep, there's that one, there's that one. But it's gotta be, and I'm kind of hoping that, and that we get at the very least, you know something that's really got some well thought out story, like overarching story to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
that's
would say it's going to have like some kind of overall relevance to the Marvel Cinematic Universe at
yeah.
large.
So it and here's the thing, the reason why it's riding on it is because we haven't seen any TV series come out of the MCU really. Okay,
Right.
I'm not going to talk about Agents of Shield. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that.
That's
I'm going to talk
different.
about post Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the reason why it has to be successful. Right now, I'm strung along by the fact that it's Vision and Scarlet Witch. I'm strung along by that. I'm like, okay, and what's happening? Let's go. So but right now I don't. There's not really a sense of urgency to the whole thing, right? So it's like,
No.
but it's interesting because I do have, go back to the X-Men thing, and you kind of were, Myron, just kind of going through that whole like, hey, we've got all these here, and I wanted to talk about two things. First of all, have you gone back and watched the first X-Men film, the one lately?
It's kind of hard, dude. Like I tried and then I fell asleep. Um, like
Like okay, so I know that Hugh Jackman, like he got like he was on like the magazine like later on after doing the Wolverine for a while. Like he was on the cover of like Men's Fitness or something like that.
oh yeah, uh-huh.
Like all this other stuff. But dude, look at him in that movie. He's not Men's Fitness material. I guarantee you that.
No,
Like
it
I'm
well,
like, all right, he's cool. Don't get me wrong. And then the other thing that I really noticed, and I may have talked to you guys about this before, is like Magneto is such a mustache twirling villain in the thing.
he was, dude. I mean, going back to what you said about Hugh Jackman. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of the term the Marvel workout program, where before shooting these films, these guys go through intense workouts and diets to build up their physique to look the part. And I think maybe that wasn't established until they got Mickey Mouse money to have that private gym and whatnot. But I don't know. Maybe if I don't know if back then if the intention was X-Men is going to be like huge to where we're going to do a trilogy for sure, or if it was going to blow up the way it did. Because I think by the time X2 came out, well, like Hugh Jackman started getting a little bit more cut because he was wearing the tank top more so, like that traditional kind of homeless Wolverine look. Whereas in the first movie, he kind of wore like a bomber jacket and jeans until they got those kind of, I don't know. I look back at them now, those crappy black X-Men suits that they had, the modernized 2000 sleek look.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, in Magneto, you're right, like he had that kind of, you know, Saturday morning kind of villain, like mustache twirly villain, plan. And so, I mean, it was what it was because I mean, it came out in what 2001.
2000 exactly.
2000 exactly. Yeah. So I mean, this was kind of like, let's think about this, because for for all of the 90s, Batman was running the comic book movie adaptation game. We tried to get a Fantastic Four, but that was pretty
We don't talk
crappy.
about that anymore.
We don't talk about that anymore. And before that, there was like a crappy Punisher with Dolph Lundgren and a crappy Captain America movie. So like comic book movies weren't really that um, prevalent. I give most of the credit to Blade for standardizing the contemporary comic book movie formula for the 2000s on out, because Blade came out like what, 98, and so after that, like every studio wanted to jump on board. Like Fox bought the rights to X-Men and Fantastic Four, Sony bought the rights to Spider-Man, Universal got the rights to Hulk. Like everybody was chomping at the bit on.
So hold on a second though. Were they sold because they were excited to make movies for it, or were they selling them because Marvel was broke?
Both.
Little from column A, little from column B.
I just want to make sure here, because like there's still some decisions they regret to this day based on all
Yeah.
that. You know, it's like, okay.
I want to say a little bit of both, but I lean more towards the bankruptcy thing, because it's like, we're bankrupt, like we need to make some money, like who wants to buy some properties? And New Line Cinema, who is, synonymous with like great horror movies, Friday the 13th, and a lot of great like darker tone, Scream, a lot of great horror movies. Blade was like a perfect pickup for them, and they did a great action comic book vampire horror movie. Like I love that movie to this day. And then I think from that success, it's kind of like, oh well, what other properties could we pick up? So it's like was X-Men originally offered to Fox, or did Fox want to jump on board and say, we want these brands or we want these properties? I don't know, but they ended up producing X-Men, Daredevil, and Fantastic Four. They had those three brands, and then or those three franchises, and then Sony had Spider-Man. I want to say that was it, and then Universal picked up the Hulk. And so like, yeah, I think after the successes of some of those movies, because then like X-Men was very successful, and then Spider-Man came out and beat the success of the X-Men, and the wave just kind of rode until like Marvel or Disney ended up buying Marvel, and then Iron Man and the movies that followed on after just like blew up. And so
it's funny because if you talk about like pre-Burton's Batman, what was the most notable superhero comic book based franchise?
Superman.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Straight up. Everybody knew that movie. Everyone.
Yep.
So, at least, I remember as a young kid, I actually did see the one with Richard Pryor in it.
Superman 3. Yep, the first two movies were supposed to be really good. Then there was, shall we say, a very steep drop off in quality after that.
Yes, sir. Yep. But like, so easily, like late 70s, 80s, and of course, Superman, in the early, let's see here, there was competition from Star Wars, I think, because Return of the Jedi came out in 1983.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then you had before that, of course, the Empire. I mean, these are juggernauts. Of films, and so people were still basking in the glow of Star Wars right until the end. But I think and Superman was definitely John Williams' score. You've got a lot of things going for it, and if you watch it nowadays, I think it would hold up. I can't tell you that for sure. But I'd have to rewatch it, but I think it's still it's probably it's a film that's still can stand the test of time, no matter how old it is.
The Superman movies.
Yeah, at least the first two.
Oh no, they're still great, dude. I
Yeah,
watched them not too long ago.
yeah.
I
And I'm
love
not a
them.
huge Superman fan, but I
Me
like those
neither.
movies. I think
Mhm.
Christopher Reeve did a good job, and oh, who played Lex Luthor?
Gene Hackman.
Gene
Thank you,
Hackman.
Gene Hackman. Yeah. Um, and I watch. And by the way, I do have the Donner cut of Superman, which basically is a
Of
much better
Superman
cut.
2.
Yeah, of Superman. Is it Superman 2? I think
He
it is.
I
directed the
believe
first
so.
one, then Richard Lester directed Superman 2 and 3. I think there
Yeah.
was like Donner was supposed to have done a lot of work on Superman 2, but then there was some sort of like falling out.
You're
Well,
right. You're right.
a lot of that was filmed. He filmed a lot of that stuff, so there was
Hmm.
already pieces and elements of it. So it was like they kind of like cut it up. So his cut is actually really good. But yeah, Batman changing kind of that. But those are kind of like Burton's Batman, that is changing that. And then I think you've correctly identified the '90s as pretty much a desert.
Hmm.
Like there was nothing that really took off. Blade did, and I think that's very accurate. But X-Men and Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man same year, right? As X-Men.
Wait,
No,
what?
Spider-Man was 2002.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So it came
yeah.
out after. Oh, okay. 2002. Yeah, that's right. Um, yes, you're correct because there was that controversy because they had the one of the promo shots was Spider-Man had a web
Between the two
between
towers.
two towers, exactly. So they had to get rid of that from the promo material for it. So
Hmm.
that's post 2001 has to be right. So but yeah, those like, and I thought hey, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, that's pretty cool. It's good. Although some people kind of really criticize the whole, what do you call it? Like CG of Spider-Man swinging. It's a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
blurry.
yeah. When you go when you go back, I still love those movies, but when you go back and watch them, they do kind of feel a little bit dated when it comes to the CG effects, especially when it comes to Green Goblin, on the little flyer, and Spider-Man's web slingings. But at that time, I mean, this was like fantastic. I mean, that like portraying Spider-Man to be able to web sling dynamically the way he does, and it's like being a Spider-Man fan, I'm like, this is cool, but until you can capture McFarlane like web slinging posability, that's when I'll be impressed. And we kind of got those more so within the Andrew Garfield era. They started kind of incorporating a little bit more dynamic web slinging, but it's gotten better and better through each generation.
Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, I think that there were some things in the '90s that, I mean, outside of that, I think there were some things that were good, but I can't like really come up with them off the top of my head. But
But as far as comic book movies,
yeah, yeah,
not
absolutely.
not not really. I
Yeah.
mean, because Batman kicked it off in '89 for the '90s when it comes to like comic book movies, and then we got Batman Begins in '92, and then of course we had Batman Forever in '95, and then Batman and Robin in '97, and then of course with this kind of blow up in comic book movies, let us not forget Spawn. And back then,
Okay.
I still love Spawn, and I was a huge Spawn fan in the '90s, and at that time Spawn came out in '97, and I did like that movie. It was really great effects at the time with his cape, and John Leguizamo as the clown was comedy. But go back and watch that movie now, and you're like, oh my goodness, dude, this looks awful. Um,
Yep.
Yeah, I started looking at some of these here. I pulled up. There is actually a Wikipedia article on superhero films, and they catalog some of this stuff into like some of the decades, or at
mhm.
least like double decades here. Let's see here. They are. I don't know if would the Rocketeer be considered. I guess
Yep.
huh?
It was a
91.
comic. It was a comic book first.
Yeah. So there's that. I've never seen Tank Girl.
I've
Nah.
seen Tank Girl.
Yeah.
It had some nice mixing of animation and live action, but
Mhm.
that was about it. It wasn't really much beyond that.
As campy as it is, I love Judge Dredd.
I liked it. I really did like that movie. And yeah, you're right. It is campy. Now here's one I forgot that they're listing. Mystery Men, and
Oh
Yep.
yeah,
I like that movie. That was quite a cast too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
that came out in like I think '99.
it says 99 here, so
Yeah,
99. And yeah, what a Ben Stiller, Hank Azaria, Greg Kinnear, Janine
Janine Garofalo,
Garofalo,
William
Paul
H Macy.
Rubens, huh?
William H Macy.
William H Macy. Yep.
Pee
So
Wee or Paul Rubens,
that's right.
Kel
Oh,
Mitchell.
yep. Oh, speaking of that, I found out something I did not know about not Pee Wee, Paul Rubin that I did not know before.
What's that?
I was watching a thing on Yesterworld on the Star Tours thing, and it turns out that he was the original voice of the pilot.
Oh wow,
Huh.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Because I was thinking about, like they did this thing. I'll send you guys a link for it. Yesterworld Star Tours story, and he talks about the original Star Tours ride. And I was thinking in my head, going like, I know I've been on that, but I don't remember what the hell it was like. Like I don't even remember like what it was. And so he's sitting here talking about like the development of it and how they came, to terms with and how they licensed it with Lucasfilm and George Lucas, like had a thing on it. But then they talked about how Paul Rubin was the first. Yeah, he was the first pilot. Like, and they had clips of the audio. And I'm like, yeah, that's Paul Rubin, all right, man. That's like Paul Rubin, like Pee Wee Herman style almost. So
Like, did you do the kind of?
not he didn't do that, but you can definitely tell when he gets excited. It's the same kind of voice tones.
I see.
So it's like let's go. Like when he starts those kinds of. Anyway, I can't emulate that dude. But I remember in Mystery Men, he had that whole like, what's your superpower? Anyway, isn't it a fart?
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was. Anyway, on that Star Tours thing, I totally forgot what that thing was about. But then it has a roll through a little bit of like what it was, and I remembered, and I was like, that's what it was. And I think it was like only one thing.
It was because I'm so used to like I'm so used to the new formula now where you travel to like different planets and each time you get on it you're in a different area. But it
Mhm.
used to be just kind of like one thing, like you escaping from the Death Star or whatever, and
Like you followed, yeah, and as until I watched this, I remembered what it was like. You kind of accidentally launch off and you go in the wrong direction, and
Mhm.
you wind up going through asteroid fields, and then you wind up like finding like star destroyers, and they put you in a tractor beam and you're
That's
almost on,
right.
and then some rebels kind of help you out, and you follow them in to do the trench run on the Death Star.
That's right.
And I was just like, oh, I've forgotten all about that crap, man. I was like,
Mhm.
holy, that's what it was. It
'Cause
was, and you're like, oh, we'll just follow them. And they're like, you're kind of, I don't remember if the tour shuttle fired anything. It was just the X-wings, and they're just escorting you through. You're just going through the trench run like it's no big deal. Like, yeah, we'll always take you through. We'll take you through here. It's about the safest way we can do it.
yeah, totally
But
different now.
yeah, totally different. I liked it though. I like that one. And the guy at the end, he's like, yeah, it'd be neat if they could like just bring that once like back, that old like simulator back, just for,
Yeah,
like for an anniversary or something like that.
yeah, that would be cool.
I think it would be cool. I think they could totally update it and just like keep pretty much the content the same, update maybe the graphics and things,
Hmm.
and you could go through the same kind of adventure. I think that would be awesome. But it was funny because it was one of the things to try to get when they built it in the 80s. It was one of the things that they tried to get like teenagers and like things that. And guess what? The other thing that they had made in the 80s to try to get teenagers into Disneyland. Captain EO.
Captain EO
Captain EO, yeah.
to bring in teenagers.
Yeah, music, man. Like,
Oh, yeah, I
it's
guess.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, I was a little kid. I mean,
Mhm.
Michael Jackson was like the thing of like when it came to pop music back in the day. So it's like when that came out, dude, I was already like wanting to see it because like oh crap, like I grew up watching Thriller and then Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. So of course like a 3D attraction at Disneyland, like as a kid you're there. I never really thought like that was designed to bring in more teenagers
Yeah. King of
and
Pop.
stuff. And didn't George Lucas have something to
Him
do
and
with it, or
Francis
was
Ford
it?
Coppola, I think, both of them.
Yeah. I thought they directed or worked on it together. You're right.
Hmm.
So I don't I
I,
don't, I
I
don't
saw
know
that before it left, like before they closed that thing down. I did want. I went
when
there, visited
when
them.
because they did bring it back for a period of time.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, like in the because I was curious. I haven't been in that section in a while because it used to be Honey, I Shrunk the Audience.
Oh, maybe it was a revival then. I don't remember.
Yeah, they had a revival because I remember like yeah, it did go away, and they brought in Honey I Shrunk the Audience, and then they took it away, and I can't remember if it was after Michael Jackson passed away, and they kind of brought it back as a memorial thing, but I do remember watching it or going back to it as an adult, like in my early 30s or so. And
Yeah.
so I'm not sure if it's still the same thing because Honey I Shrunk the Kids is a franchise that's been dormant, for a long time. So I don't think like, too many people would know like, what it is or even care about going on it. Whereas, Captain EO, like, I mean, you still have like a lot of longtime fans that would go on it, but I don't know about its relevancy to like keep it there. But I haven't been on that side of Tomorrowland in a long time because California Adventure started getting doper, and then of course
Mhm.
um, they built Galaxy's Edge, and that kind
Yeah.
of that
So the
took.
last thing, the last bit of news is that, and yeah, well, I know Disneyland and them technically closed right now, but
Hmm.
the things that they're still working on because it's a great time to work on things,
Hmm.
um, is the Bugs Land was taken out and they're putting in the like
Avengers Tower.
yeah, the Avengers stuff is going to go right there. So
Yes, I saw videos of that, and they already have like exclusive products that came out, like Spider-Man's Spider Bot.
yep,
They were offering that to pass holders, I think, during the holidays. That was like the only way um, you can get it is if you were a pass holder. But I tried getting into like downtown Disney one time. I'm like, nah, dude, like screw this, because you got to get there like I think they open up at 9, but you have people camping out there till like at 6:30, 7 o'clock, just waiting to get in. And so like the last time me and a couple friends tried to go, like we were circling the parking lot hoping that they were allowing more people in because as people leave, that's when they start letting people in. And we were kind of circling for like 30 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, we're not gonna get in.
now going back to those the early comic book movies,
Hmm.
the article does make a mention of the Matrix. And while it's not based on like, a comic book property, it was like its first, shot out the door. It definitely was influential towards that whole thing,
Hmm.
like
Yeah,
anime, cyberpunk. Just blend
unless
that.
you ask Grant Morrison.
Haha. What give us the story on this one?
Apparently, Grant Morrison was super pissed when the Matrix came out because they felt like they were ripping off a lot of the stuff he was doing in his comic book, The Invisibles,
Ah.
which is about
Mm.
these people, this group of like independent freedom fighters who were just like living in a world where every conspiracy was true. It's like, and they're just fighting against like these shadowy alien creatures that were that were supposedly running the show. It's like it doesn't. There's not a lot of stuff that's like specific that you can draw like from like specific plot points between the two. I mean, unless you want to like talk about how like all Morrison believes like reality is just a simulation and all, but just like the overall style of the it's like of the characters and it's like in the book. That's kind of what he was upset about, and I think that I think the guys at Warner Brothers may have shown like the Wachowski some of his stuff beforehand, and they went,
Mm.
this is kind of cool. So there's that, but yeah, it's like Matrix isn't really based on like any one thing. You know, it took like a whole lot of different influences and just like tied them all together to like in a nice, like very stylish package for everyone, which I generally enjoyed. And
Yeah.
it's like, hey, that fourth one they're making right now, I'll go see it, but I
Yep.
can't say that I'm really I have like the highest expectations for it because
Yeah.
I like the Matrix, but the first half of the movie is great science fiction. The second half is Keanu the one? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is. So
Yeah. True. Too true. Too true. So I'm gonna go through some of the list here that they've got. This is kind of interesting, and it should bring back some member berries for some of y'all. But so of course we talked about X-Men, and then they talk about Unbreakable.
doesn't count.
Doesn't
Yeah.
count. You don't think so, huh? Okay.
Well, it's a movie about comic books, but it's not a
Yeah.
comic book movie.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's
agreed.
similar to yeah, okay, got it. Yep. That makes sense. So of course Spider-Man in 2002 is what they're saying. Blade 2,
Mm-hmm.
So
Daredevil.
good.
Daredevil.
So good.
Okay, no one said anything when it said Daredevil.
I
so-
haven't seen
Oh.
it, so I mean, like, I wouldn't mind seeing it at some point because I'm pretty sure it's not as bad as everyone says it is.
You said it pretty softly, so I didn't hear that. But
Oh yeah.
I'm probably one of the rare. It is cheesy and kind of campy, but I'm probably one of the rare few. Like I own and like that movie because I like Daredevil. I like the Daredevil character.
Yeah.
And I thought that Ben Affleck's rendition was a good job. I liked it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You know, you could see one of his costumes when they had at Kevin Smith's secret stash when he had one near the UCLA campus. He had one there. They closed that shop down. They moved that all to the New Jersey store, which is the only store, and that's what you see in Comic Book Men.
Yeah, that sucks, dude. Like,
Yeah. I see that, like, they have, like, when you watch those episodes and you see that kind of torn up card table, they used to have that one there. I remember seeing it there when I visited a couple of times.
Yeah, I miss that store, and I do wish there was a West Coast location because, I watch Comic Book Men a lot. Like, I rewatch that show a lot just because I love like Walt and Min. Like I love like Walt Min and Brian and Mike just kind of breaking down like like comic book values and the stories and when these books came out, just like the history behind the genre, and of course like seeing people kind of barter for like
It's
like, oh, this book is $400. I was hoping to get it for $150 today, and just kind of seeing the negotiation game between him and the customers.
It's funny because when I first walked into that store, Brian was running it.
Oh
And
yeah.
he was at the counter.
Mhm.
He started insulting me. Like when you see him on the show, that's who he is in real life. Like there's no difference. Like that dude, that's that dude. Yeah, talk with him a little bit, but he's funny. So what they got here? A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Sean Connery's last film, God rest his soul.
Was that his last film?
That was his last film.
Wow.
He retired after that.
I didn't realize that.
That's a terrible legacy.
You'd think you want to keep going like until you like kind of like ended like on a good movie, but oh well. Like even with this like film, like his legacy is like rock solid. Beyond that.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like it wipes out a multitude of sins, right? Like like people don't remember him for the last movie he did.
Nope.
Everybody has some.
So Hulk, I saw this in the theater with Jess. He drugged me to the theater to watch it back then, and I was like, okay. No, he did. I was like, oh no, and I saw it, and I was just like,
yeah, I saw it. With,
yeah, that's about right.
That was my reaction. I was just like, wow, this is not great. I think I rewatched that movie like 4 years ago, and I was like, it's still not great.
Damn you, Ang Lee.
Yeah, I'm like, it's still not great.
The best part of that movie was Jennifer Connelly, and that's it.
Yeah. Um, X2 was in 2003, the same year as the Hulk,
That
or
was
Hulk. I'm sorry. Blade Trinity is 2004. Catwoman was in 2004,
dope.
Let's
Yeah.
not.
and Hellboy was in 2004.
Oh, okay.
Good times.
Yeah. The Punisher was in 2004.
Which with Thomas Jane
Uh,
Yeah.
I think
and John Travolta, that was a good one.
2004 had a lot. Spider-Man 2 was in 2004.
Hmm.
And hard to believe that in 2005 was Batman Begins. Okay.
Yeah, that's about right.
Elektra and Fantastic Four were both 2005 as well. But
Elektra sucked, and Fantastic Four like cheesy, but I like it.
X-Men: The Last Stand was in 2006.
Horrible.
The Rise of the Silver Surfer was in 2007.
Bah,
Ghost Rider was also 2007, and so was Spider-Man
bah,
3.
bah. So,
Teen,
so now
I think the Bay version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was 2007.
horrible.
Yeah. The Bay, you know what I'm talking about. The Bayverse version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Wait, no. It's like that. I remember like the first of Michael Bay produced Ninja Turtles came out in 2014. I remember because it was the same year as Guardians of the Galaxy.
You know what? That sounds about right. Because
Are we talking about like, the TMNT
Computer-
MCG?
TMNT. This is the computer animated one because I knew it wasn't
Yeah.
like the first film was like what 2000 or something.
What first?
Teenage Mutant Ninja. Oh, it was like early 90s.
Yeah, the first Ninja Turtles movie came out in like 1990.
You know, with the people in the suits.
Yeah, because Turtles 2 came out in like 91, 92.
Yeah,
And then Turtles 3 came out in 93.
those designs are pretty cool.
Yeah. But because no, 2007 is when Michael Bay started, getting rich off of Transformers. That was when Transformers came out.
That's not a comic book movie.
No.
Although the first one, okay, I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it. Let's see here. Ghost Rider was in 2007. Spider-Man 3 was also in 2007. That's the one with the symbiote. Ooh.
Man.
Right. We did talk about that, but I mean, like, I don't think that anyone's gonna erase that meme anytime soon.
No.
The one of him dancing. Anyway,
it's like I still don't think they're trying to like portray that as like as a serious example of Spider-Man going bad. I mean, it was just way too cheesy, and just felt like they had to have known like just how goofy they were doing right here. And they just figured, hey, you know what? This is hilarious. So let's just go ahead and people on the set are reacting to it. So let's go ahead and just go with it anyway.
Let's drive this one off the cliff, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
That's probably what happened after Sony like meddled in Sam Raimi's story of what he really wanted to tell. He just said, "Fine, I'll just drive close to the cliff then."
Hellboy 2: The Golden Army was in 2008.
So good, but a general rule to like don't release your comic book movie like the weekend before like a new Batman movie comes out.
Yeah. So Dark Knight 2008, Hellboy 2: The Golden Army in 2008, Iron Man was in 2008.
I remember when
Incredible Hulk was 2008. That's a pretty good chunk of movies there, man.
I remember when we were doing like no podcast for old men. We were like wondering like what is like the better like who is like doing like these superhero movies better, Marvel or DC? And not like 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 they had Batman just coming back with the Nolan movies, but then like Marvel just like comes out with like with Iron Man, you're thinking like, well, which one's better? It's like, and you think like, well, DC's kind of got the history behind them and all, and like little did we know that like the answer there'd be a definitive answer to that question. It's like over the next decade, very definitive.
Well, the Dark Knight mopped up the floor with like making like profit, like it was the highest grosser. I saw that thing.
Sure.
I don't know, like in the theaters. I must have seen that thing like 7 times. I'm not joking, you guys. Like I saw it once in IMAX in Vegas.
Yeah, I saw it in IMAX at Ontario.
Yeah, it was so awesome. But I saw that thing, like, I'm not joking, like 7 times when that thing came out. I was in love with that movie. I
So,
thought
so,
it was great.
so basically, off of the list that you're rattling on about, we see like a decline between 2004, which was like Spider-Man 2,
Mm.
to 2008 with this resurgence of like really good comic book movies. I mean, the only gem in the middle was probably Batman Begins in 2005, but I mean, like just the time
Yeah.
frame you've listed between 2004 and 2008, there were some kind of stinkers in there.
Yeah. Not everything was a hit.
No.
But Iron Man probably, like, I mean, I don't know if it was envisioned at that point as being like, we're going to do all this stuff with it,
I don't
but
think so either.
it certainly, yeah, exactly. It's certain, and the Incredible Hulk, like, see here, this just shows you like a little bit of the split in the market with the Marvel properties, right? Like, I really like the Incredible Hulk. I still
Yeah,
do.
I love that movie too with Edward Norton.
Yep.
That was like the redeeming one.
Yep. But there's no way you would have said that those two movies would have had anything to do with each other at that point. Like, because they were just owned by different studios.
Well,
Still
no,
technically.
they were, yeah, because
Yeah.
Iron Man was Paramount, and then
Incredible
Hulk
Hulk is
is
Universal.
still Universal. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, it still is actually technically. I
technically
think they
speaking,
still
yeah.
do. So the year after that, 2009, X-Men Origins Wolverine
Yeah,
and Watchmen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. So interesting things. Well, I think that there's a lot of stuff in this list. It's no, they go on to talk about like some other stuff that was non-Hollywood superhero films, like Ultraman in 2004 and Casher in 2004.
Oh, I loved Krishern, dude. That was
That
like a
the
dope
movie, the
ass
live
movie.
action one from Japan, right?
Yeah, I got that on DVD.
Okay, all right. So there's that at least, because I have not seen that one, honestly. So
It had some really great visuals, and I forgot the director's name, but he was known for making music videos.
mhm.
And you know, I grew up watching, like, there was an anime OVA back in the day that came on sci-fi. I think it was called Kashan, you know, because of, you know, lost in translation. But it was called Kashan, and that's where I was first exposed to that Tatsunoko character. And then watching this live action movie, I think DreamWorks ended up publishing it out here for the U.S. But I just remember being blown away by like seeing a live action anime done, you know, on screen, and you know, having like really awesome effects
Not being terrible, you mean?
and not being terrible. Exactly.
So just jumping into, real quick, the following decade, 2008 to present, they start listing things like 2010 Kick-Ass. I like that movie.
Yeah.
That's a good movie.
Better than the comic.
says our comic book expert. And you know what? Yeah, I think I did read that, and you're right. It is better than the comic. So
Yeah, it's like my opinion of Mark Miller is just falling off a cliff over the last decade. He did some good stuff that I thought back in the day, but man, it's like God, I just can't read his dialogue. It's just so tone deaf and on the nose that it's just painful to read. And the Kick Ass, the comic, really like epitomized that.
yeah, I did like that movie. That was a great movie.
Mhm.
So I mean, just I liked it. I rewatched that. That's got rewatchability on it. It really does. Iron Man 2 is the same year, by the way. So, and I like that movie. I know people like
Shit on it, but
yeah,
I love it. I love it too.
It's proof that even when like Marvel movies like have like so-so stories, they can still be redeemed by the charms of their cast.
Yeah,
I love Mickey. I love Mickey Rourke as Whiplash.
Flash. Yeah, it was cool.
You little star. You little.
What about my Boyd?
I want my Boyd. Like, yeah, we're gonna get you the bird dance on the way, but you know,
When he cries in the beginning, he's like, "Ah!"
ah,
You're like,
ah.
what are you doing? Are you screaming or are you crying? What are you doing? Is it both? Okay, so
Yeah, I was like, when people crap on Iron Man 2, I'm like, dude, that movie was so like comedy. Like, I mean, I love it just because I love the Iron Man sequences, of course. But I'm like, man, you got to give props to Mickey Rourke and Sam Rockwell. Like, I love the Justin Hammer character, kind of being that that douchey kind of like competitive company, and just kind of like his attitude and his mannerisms of trying to be like a hipster cool CEO, almost like trying to copy Tony Stark, but not that well. I liked Iron Man 2 a lot. Like 3 was like the weakest of the trilogy, but 1 and 2 I really loved.
So interestingly enough, so you fast forward, this list goes to 2011, the Green Hornet, Green Lantern, X-Men First Class, and Thor, and Captain America: The First Avenger. All those movies were released in the same one. Now, of course, Green Lantern.
Boo.
Should have been great. But
Wow,
no,
yeah,
they just like dropped the ball on that big time.
that was
Yeah.
terrible. Enough to where Ryan Reynolds can parody how bad that movie is in his Deadpool movies, right? So
Mhm,
okay,
Mhm.
mhm.
there's some breaking of some walls there, man. Like, I mean, that's cool. But
This
yeah,
is
that movie was oh my gosh, man.
this
No,
is this is before DC started hitting the mark on their movies on a
yeah,
regular basis.
yeah, yep. Uh,
Regular basis.
Well, well, well. I didn't really care for Wonder Woman 84, but at the same time, like, I mean, it did prove successful, and I did talk to some people who actually really enjoyed the film. But I mean, um, a lot of their films that they've come out with recently have been pretty great. Like their most recent Black Eyes, for me, of this past decade, probably Batman versus Superman and Justice League. That's it. But everything else so far has been pretty good.
Justice League seems to be a complicated mess. Like when I mean that,
Yeah.
it's like I'm still not clear on all the like changes and why, and like I know isn't there supposed to be like a Zack Snyder cut they put on
It's
HBO?
coming to
Yep.
HBO Max. It's
Like,
gonna be 4 parts, like
yeah,
1 hour each.
wow. And if that turns out to be like I don't know. That I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see on that one. Like, does this
Hmm.
redeem this? Does it fix things? And people are claiming that it will. So I don't know. So it's like that one um, might change the landscape, and then again, it might not. It might just be just like, oh yeah, it's just crappy. Who knows?
I don't think that what Justice League needed was more Zack Snyder. Like
Yeah,
not after Man of Steel, definitely not after like on Batman versus Superman. The guy
Oh,
just
dude.
does not get Superman. Well, he's a guy who thinks that having mature like adult friendly superheroes means hey they gotta kill. Like, you think Batman would? It's like has been like like doing non lethal all these years. No, he hasn't. It's like no. It's like that's jeez man.
And
It's like
and I love Man of Steel though. For me who thinks Superman is like too Boy Scouty. Like I loved like the darker tone and change of that movie. Um,
all I can see.
it had its moments, but
All
I
I
don't think it's not something that you. It's if you're gonna like have a Superman who kills, I mean, you don't go there in his very first movie. This is
all I,
something that actually had to be built up and like and addressed, as far as I'm concerned.
man,
all I can see is Kevin Costner's character going, no, like,
yeah.
like, and I parodied it on like Robot Chicken, which made it worse.
But at the same time, I was like, man, if you don't kill Zod, like he's gonna keep coming back towards you, man. Just blast his ass, and he did.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting stuff. Amy Adams as Lois Lane. Okay, all right. So, um, I liked X-Men First Class. I did.
Oh yeah,
That was a return to former glory for me because after what is it? What was the third X-Men movie?
Last
Uh,
Stand. Oh, Last Stand and Wolverine Origins.
Yeah,
right.
so Last Stand, Wolverine Origins, those were pretty sour for me. the Wolverine, it was okay. I liked it, but First Class was that like, okay, now we're getting back to basics,
Mhm.
and they did a good job with that. And then
Yep.
they followed the same pattern again because Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix was like, okay, it's
Apocalypse was entertainingly cheesy. It's like Dark Phoenix. Well, it's not the worst movie ever made, but it's certainly like very dull and definitely uninspired. It's
Yeah.
just like the writer like Simon Kingberg, after like years of like writing some movies, he imagined that he looked at this and went, "Hey, directing these big budget movies isn't that hard. I bet I could do it." Nope. No, you could not, sir, and you're
So
never gonna get that chance again.
agreed. And you know what? Well, you should. I did not even watch that movie. I'm sorry.
I can't
I just
recommend it.
I went on your recommendation. I'm like, I'm seeing this is probably something I don't need to sit in front of. Maybe someday I'll watch it, but I've got a long list of things I'd rather watch. I'm
It,
sorry.
it doesn't even have the decency to be like so bad it's good. So
You.
or
Yeah,
just have it playing in the background when you're actually like you're doing something and you just need like white noise. Just have it playing back then.
so, but however, X-Men First Class did, its best follow-up is Days of Future Past. I
Yeah,
really
oh
thought
yeah,
that
both
film is like 100%. Like it's a solid A plus, man.
yeah,
yeah, and
both those
it
movies.
helps seeing it in a theater where like there was filled with fanboys who were just like looking for a good time there. I
Yeah,
remember we saw this at Fonda May like
yeah,
when it came out. It's like
yeah.
and the theater was packed, and it's like everyone was super into it as well.
Yeah, it's pretty damn cool, man. You gotta
Hmm.
love that. Yeah. Yeah, but 2011 did bring that whole, you got Captain America, the First Avenger, Thor, that's the like part of the MCU really spinning up, people
Hmm.
say Iron Man, but Iron Man really was like folded into it. It was a part of that, but and I don't know, I can't say because the first two Iron Man film don't they kind of have some of those elements like well no the second one does the first one not really as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
um
like the
I
first.
can't say that was on their roadmap and
Yeah,
they may claim it now but it doesn't look like it.
yeah, the first and Incredible Hulk like seemed to be folded into it.
Yeah, and I liked I really liked that one. That was good too. But so yeah, you got let's see, is there anything else? 2012, they were talking about Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. I did not see
Nah.
it. And then the Avengers was in 2012 as well. So, and let's see here, Dark Knight Rises. Well, you'll remember that one. Anyway, so
Why don't you wear your mask?
oh, you should wear a mask. Yes, indeed. So the Dark Knight Rises was the same, and I liked it a
Well,
lot.
speak,
Although because it would have been, yeah, it was good. I
speak,
really was good. But
speaking of Bane, have you ever gotten back onto that Harley Quinn animated
no,
series?
I gotta watch. It's like it's a and you know what my thing is that my TVs are all set up with like based on what they are. They have like the apps that are installed in them. Like my LG TV has like YouTube and Disney Plus and Hulu and Movies Anywhere and Amazon. I just haven't set up any of my TVs to actually plug. I have HBO Max, and I'm
Hmm.
not even using it. Like I get it for free right
Oh
now,
wow.
so I'm not even using it. So go figure. I gotta set it up though, because I do want to watch that because I like that kind of humor. It entertains me, um,
Hmm.
and so if it entertains me, I'm gonna go after it. That's good stuff. But yeah, I'll let you know for sure when I start watching more of those. Harley Quinn, right?
Yep, Harley Quinn.
It's just called Harley Quinn.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, oh, Man of Steel was 2013. Okay. So, oh, and then you had the Amazing Spider-Man that was in 2012 as well. How interesting.
Mm.
And that was like a reboot, right? So,
Yeah, that was a pretty decent reboot. I
yeah.
mean, we finally got to see Gwen Stacy and Captain Stacy entered into the storyline, and of course the Lizard, who was a character I wish Sam Raimi had a chance to do. But yeah, I mean it was a cool reboot, and then of course like the second one, fell a little bit short, but the Spider Man, I still like it and watch it.
I haven't seen either of those movies.
Oh wow,
I mean, it's like I remember thinking it was just too soon for them to do like a reboot. It's like, and then the reviews are just kind of like, eh. So it's
yeah,
kind of
'cause-
like I got the feeling like it wasn't something that I could just skip. Really, it's
yeah,
like,
yeah. Because the problem is they redid the Uncle Ben, storyline in the beginning again, and it's kind of like to your point. Yeah, it was too soon. We got all that. We know that you could have just jumped right in.
yep. And then for the second one, like the reviews for that one were just terrible. It's like I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely skipping this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, when we go through it all, we got the Wolverine and X-Men Days of Future Past. She already touched on those, so
Yeah.
and, like that was being like the Days of Future Past was 2014, and it was financially successful.
Uh-huh.
I love that film. I actually have the
Rogue cut.
yeah, I got the Rogue cut as well, so I have that on Blu-ray. So yeah. So, and then, I think it essentially over the last, 5 or 6 years pretty much catches you up to like the modern era, or, like where we're at with all the MCU stuff.
Uh-huh.
So you can count all that in there in the last 6 years or whatever. And I'd like to, honestly, I'd like to see what they do with for X-Men and the MCU. Everybody, I think, does. That's my request. Please give me that before I die.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to see. And I want it to be good. So
Now, Jason, you said earlier, like, was it you or John who said earlier that was it Kevin Feige or Marvel Studios saying it's too soon to do mutants into the storyline?
Yeah, I think what I've heard is that like he says mutants aren't coming for a while because remember they've got all the current stuff that they've announced that's in the pipeline. They said that they're working with Ryan Reynolds on Deadpool 3,
yep.
but that has not been given like any kind of release date, and you'd have to imagine that it's going to come all all the Phase 4 stuff. But maybe they'll try to slot it in between these things, but I don't know. It's like if they're just saying like, "Oh, we're getting started on Deadpool now," it seems like that's a very long way off. It's like at this point,
Yeah,
and then
I mean,
like it's gonna be like any kind of thing involving mutants is gonna happen like after that.
I mean, I see that and I agree with you there too. But I kind of hope that, I know that Phase 4 is still being worked on because we have the Eternals and Shang-Chi are the next like big new movies coming
Oh,
out.
don't forget about Black Widow.
Yeah, well, that was supposed to come out last year, but that's
Yeah,
finally
Black Widow and Eternals were supposed to come out last year.
that's right, and we were supposed to get Shang-Chi by like February originally. So a lot of schedules got shifted, and then what else is in Phase 4? Like Spider-Man 3, I believe is
That's kind of like that's like Sony's thing. I mean, it's still part of like the MCU, but like that's like part of Sony's like Spider-Verse, like along with like the Morbius movie as well.
I see, because I thought they were going to use that because then we still got Doctor Strange, and I thought
Yep.
Spider-Man. I thought Spider-Man 3 was going to be a way for them to segue Spider-Man back into like the Sony universe of movies. Like this would be like Spider-Man's quote unquote last like MCU related um, movie. So I mean, we'll see how it goes. But excuse me, but after Doctor Strange I think that's it for Phase 4, right?
No, there's also Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they've also announced now that James Gunn's finished with the Suicide Squad over at DC, he's gonna come back and do Guardians of the Galaxy Part Volume 3.
Oh, damn, I forgot about that too.
Yeah, and well, there was another sequel that was announced as well that was gonna happen, but unfortunately, after Chadwick Boseman passed away, like what they're gonna do with Black Panther, it's really up in the air right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one.
yeah,
Are they gonna recast?
They're not going. They said they're not going to recast him.
nope,
Like the bidding money right now is on Shuri taking over as Black
Black
Panther,
Panther.
which
Yep,
is something that's also been done in the comics as well.
Oh,
yep.
cool.
So
Right. Well, so we might get. I mean, we might get a little bit of CD Chadwick Boseman. Who knows?
uh,
CGI.
Nah,
You know.
yeah, I
Yeah.
really don't see that happening.
Yeah. Well.
I would be against that. I'm like, nah, you can't do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I'm not putting it past them to do it. It
True.
is Disney after all, so. I mean, we can get others in there, and they'll do it. But that's a tough one. Honestly, yeah, it's a tough one. So
Yeah, so it does really sound like we probably won't get anything X-Men related until like 2024
Yeah.
possibly.
Oh, and
yeah.
don't forget, there's also going to be a Blade movie with Mahershala Ali.
That's right. And then
Mm,
I thought I read like pre-production or something with Fantastic Four is being worked on. This
I imagine it's like yeah, it's probably easier to plug in the Fantastic Four like to the MCU since they're kind of already a part of it and they don't require their own separate explanation like because mutants are kind of like their own specific thing as opposed to
yeah.
just superheroes in general. Yeah.
you
But
know,
also I think like the reason they're moving ahead with Deadpool is like aside from the fact that the first two films made a ton of money,
Hmm.
just the fact that like you don't need like any real to work real hard in order to insert Deadpool into the MCU. It's like I mean he's just gonna like talk up like all the stuff that happened. It's like and why he's here. It's like because we all know that hey you want Deadpool? Well here he is. So
Hmm.
that you don't need any more explanation as to how he got here than that. So
yeah. It's just how. Yeah. It could be a gauge of things to come as well. You never know. So they could throw a few bones to the fans on
Yeah.
how mutant universe might be working. Although there's already people in it, so this is going to be an interesting thing. So it's just changed. Who knows? We'll see.
hmm
As long as they don't remove the charm, I think we'll be all right.
hmm
Agreed.
I could even see them changing, some of the X-Men that you saw, but I think at the end of the day, if you don't remove the charm, it's still good. So that's my point. So yeah, I think that pretty much, outside of that, it's just we're at modern times and back to WandaVision. So yeah, it's a pretty cool little discussion we're having on this stuff. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how a lot of this stuff kind of evolved, and how it's still evolving. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Because I
uh,
mean, aside from Agents of Shield, that was pretty much Marvel's only television, show aside from the Netflix series. I totally forgot about those, but
and
uh,
Agent Carter.
and Agent Carter. I mean, they've had their hands dipped into some television series, but DC, in my opinion, has been killing it with like Arrow and the Flash and Supergirl and all those type of shows. Like I think Marvel is really set to have more good projects for television based storytelling in the works, and we've already have plans for that with WandaVision's out now, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then of course Loki. But I would love to see more characters come out the woodwork. Like I really loved Daredevil and on Netflix, and I really had hope that maybe they would pick it up and continue on with that. But of course, like there's those back 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 business dealings that kind of tie up things. But they
does it
really,
involve a violent mouse?
huh?
Does it involve a violent mouse?
Well, maybe not so much of a violent mouse as it is with like the previous Netflix deals, and then of course like with those deals in place, like I'm pretty sure that mouse is starting to get more violence. Like, give me back my shit, you know. So I would love to see the continuation of like that Daredevil and that Luke Cage, Um, Iron Fist, I don't care about, and I would love to see the continuation of Punisher and Jessica Jones. I like Jessica Jones too. So I mean, they had something there, but we're gonna see. I think what we're gonna see coming from these series are more shows based on the movies themselves and have that tie-in because that's what a lot of fans are more accustomed to is your Tom Hiddlestons and your you know you know what's her name Elizabeth Olsen's and those actors and characters. So I think
Yep.
we'll see a lot of those tie-ins for the next few series.
Yep. Well, it'll be exciting to kind of see what the state of it'll be coming up here. Um, and I think with that we can kind of end this stream. Next time we'll be talking about more cool shit. So join us next time.
Join us next time, fans
See,
and true believers.
see ya.
Later.
Later.